everyone. So first off, I want to note, just in case you're wondering, I didn't randomly grow a beer belly. I'm pregnant, so I just wanted to get that out of the way. I don't want you to have to spend the whole time wondering if I'm pregnant or disproportionately fat. So all right, today is my 1-year free speech anniversary. For the last year, I've been involved in the controversy over how back in November 2017, in my role as teaching assistant at Wilfrid Laurier University, I played 5 minutes from a public television show that featured Jordan Peterson talking about pronouns. Yeah, Jordan Peterson. I then got in trouble for targeting trans folks, creating a toxic learning environment, and I went to the media about this. And the first article that came out was written by Christy Blatchford in the National Post on November 10th, 2017. So it's great to be in Calgary exactly 1 year later, speaking here at Rebel Live. But if I do look back to a year ago, I honestly was a bit skeptical to associate myself with Rebel because I knew how the leftists would attack me for it. But in June of this year, I was invited to speak at Rebel Live in Toronto, and I thought I'd give it a try. And I met some really great people afterwards, and a lot of the people who came up to me actually said they don't even consider themselves right-wing or even conservative. They just want something else, something other than mainstream media, something other than CBC especially. And they feel like they're not getting the full story, right? So this is why I think, for example, Maxime Bernier is really smart for speaking here today later. I've already seen, some snarky comments on social media about him coming here, and I think it shows that he isn't afraid of the attacks and the snarky comments that he's going to get. So today, I want to talk about free speech, of course. And one of the things I've learned over the past year is that a lot of people and a lot of university students just don't get it. They don't get why free speech is needed. And it's generally, I think, because their opinions toe the line and are so mainstream and so orthodox that they get very confused when someone says, well, we need to be able to have the right to talk about things that might involve unpopular opinions because they can't fathom having an unpopular opinion about any kind of meaningful social issue. So for example, one girl who was in my class, we did our master's degrees together. She wrote in a social media post about free speech on campus that there is no such thing as free speech. You can't just go to your job and start swearing at people. And it's like, wow, Alicia, great insights. You really hit the nail on the head. That's exactly the issue we're talking about here. So aside from some people totally missing the point, other people use safety as a reason why speech should be shut down. And usually, of course, it's university students advocating that speech should be shut down because they find it unsafe. But really, the situations they find unsafe are very far-fetched. So Ben Shapiro, who is editor of the Daily Wire and a conservative commentator, he actually spoke for the UBC, University of British Columbia, Free Speech Club on October 31st, so just this past Halloween. And someone, a friend of a friend of a friend of mine, they wrote this on Facebook. In my 4 years at UBC, I have never felt as unsafe as I did tonight. So they're talking about the night Ben Shapiro gave his presentation in an auditorium on campus at UBC. The person continues. Every car that passed us flashed memories of Charlottesville. And I asked the person who showed me this post, was this guy even at Charlottesville during the Unite the Right rally? And no, he wasn't there. Then I came across an op-ed in the McMaster University student newspaper where the student author was describing how she was in a tutorial about diversity in the workplace. And she writes, what was intended to be a discussion on employment equity quickly turned into a discussion on if racism exists in Canada and if the term white privilege is a form of reverse racism. She goes on to say that after that, I had never felt more unsafe in my 4 years at McMaster University. She then argues that course syllabi need to have a disclaimer that some sensitive topics might be discussed in the course, and that students should be able to opt out and leave should they not wish to engage in such dangerous and threatening topics. What's amazing, though, is that this student writes about how, this is literally her sentence, university is an opportune time to learn different experiences and perspectives. So there's so much cognitive dissonance because it's all about the beauty of different perspectives until you hear one you don't like. Then you should storm out of the room and claim that the discussion is unsafe. So many also try to justify the deplatforming of speakers by saying, well, it's not because of any ideological tilt that this speech was shut down, it's because the safety of everyone involved couldn't be guaranteed. So one example of this is my club, the Laurier Society for Open Inquiry. Just last month, we hosted Megan Murphy. She's a leftist feminist. She's editor of The Feminist Current, but she rejects transgender ideology, so that makes her a dangerous person. And Wilfrid Laurier University was going to charge us $8,055 in security fees to host her for her speech. So these fees are, of course, passed off as a way of ensuring safety, but a big part of them is just the university trying to cancel the speech, and everyone will just say, oh yeah, it's because the organizers couldn't afford the security fee. Then the detractors will say things like, oh, guess free speech isn't free after all. And they think they're very clever when they say that. But obviously the question is, which events are being charged the security fees? In response to our Megan Murphy event, which we had to hold off campus at a different venue, the Wilfrid Laurier University Rainbow Center, so the LGBTQ Center, they held 2 events. One was a trans allyship workshop the day after our event, and another was called the Love Letters to Inclusive Feminism event that same night, where they all did crafts. And they posted pictures of the crafts after, which I just saw today, and I don't know, they just didn't look that good. And they collectively healed. But those events, of course, there's no security fees for those, because people like me are not going to protest their event because I just have better things to do. Clearly then, there's a lot of backwards thinking when it comes to free speech on campus in Canada, and a lot of people, again, missing the point. Another trend I see as quite concerning is the progressive stack. So this is where a moral hierarchy is created, so where non-victims or lesser victims give their platform to someone higher on the victim hierarchy, so that a historically marginalized person has a greater chance to speak, and we can try to correct past oppressions in the present day. This became more high profile last year when a teaching assistant at University of Pennsylvania, Stephanie McKellop, she posted on her social media account in 2017, I will always call on my Black women students first. Other people of color get second-tier priority. WW, white women, come next. And if I have to, white men. So again, she's the TA for the course, so she's talking about when people put their hand up, who she'll choose. And so she's decided that this is the order she will choose in. So, you know, to give her a lot of credit, it is the job of a moderator to make sure they're choosing a mix of voices to speak up in class. So you do want to make sure you're mixing it up. But of course, the way she bragged about it on social media, you know, bragging about picking white men last, it's pretty abhorrent. And this is not an isolated incident. So someone at my own university told me that in one of their classes, it was either the instructor or a guest speaker that day, this person said, white people should not talk as much as others in the classroom because of the privilege they have in society. So this, probably like you, really made me shake my head, especially because for the first almost 2.5 years of my own university degree, I was super shy. I would barely put my hand up in class. And I did get over the shyness eventually, but I can't imagine someone who's shy, just like me, who's starting to get more confidence to raise their hand in class and speak up, only to be told by an authority figure that you're white, so you should sit back and probably not talk as much. It's very sad when you think about it, because that kind of statement could really hinder someone's personal development, hinder their intellectual development, and that's exactly what they're paying for when they're paying to go to university. So it's really hard to tell what these people are thinking sometimes. I also saw a tweet the other day by an Indigenous woman, and she wrote, "The Indigenous students who choose to embrace Indigenous lifeways and worldviews while trapped in the colonial academy are warriors. You are powerful and brilliant, and we all know it." But you applied to university. This isn't like a residential school where you were taken forcibly from your family and you're trapped in a building. She says, trapped in the colonial academy. Is the university colonial because it's heavily based on reading and writing and not oral traditions? I don't know. But what I do know is that I'm very worried about universities continuing down this path that will lead to their destruction. Thank you.